In this first video on global strategy, we explore the motives why firms globalize and expand across new geographic markets, and we also explore the challenges that they face during this process. The process of expanding across global markets involves several steps or several decisions that must be made. First is the one we'll explore in this video, which is why firms globalize. The following videos then explore how firms select a country to expand into, and then the third and final video focuses on the how, or the strategy firms use and the method of entry firms use to enter foreign markets. This geographic expansion of global strategy is the third and final expansion path involved in a firm's corporate strategy, represented here by the diagonal arrow. It is important to note here that the better off test and ownership test still apply to this concept of geographic expansion. Before delving into the motives that firms use to globalize, it's first important to talk about a few basic definitions. First, when we talk about globalization in general, we're talking about the process whereby markets across the world are becoming more closely integrated and exchange is increasing between different countries and different regions. This integration is a result of falling trade and investment barriers, technological advancements that enhance communication, the reduction of transportation costs, and then also the rise of multinational enterprises and foreign direct investment. Now, a multinational enterprise, or MNE, is a firm that deploys its resources and capabilities in at least two countries. Foreign direct investment refers to when a firm invests in value chain activities abroad rather than simply exporting its goods or services across country borders. With these basic definitions in mind, we now explore the motives why some firms globalize by expanding into new foreign markets. Global expansion involves at least one of the three listed here. First, a firm, or an MNE, sells goods or services outside of its domestic market. Second, a multinational enterprise produces its goods or services outside of its domestic market. Or third, part of the value chain of the multinational enterprise is performed outside of its home country. Thus, global expansion for a multinational enterprise involves performing one or a combination of more than one of these activities. And it's important to note that it could be one or any combination of these that represents geographical expansion. The main motivations for global expansion for a multinational enterprise can be categorized into three groups. The first group is really trying to access larger markets, larger pools of customer demand for its product or services, and capitalize on the various market potentials of other foreign markets. This often happens when these foreign markets are growing faster, such as in emerging economies, and or when the domestic or home market is saturated. A second reason firms try to expand globally is to try to gain access to low-cost input factors to help produce their good or service. These input factors could be labor in terms of, for example, cheap production overseas, access to natural resources such as precious metals used in technology, access to new technology through maybe it's hiring engineers from a very technologically sophisticated education system, or through logistics. The third and final general motivation or reason is to acquire or develop new competencies. This is done either through location economies, where a particular country offers a particular advantage in developing a new competency, or there are advantages, for example, in moving to, for example, Silicon Valley. If you are a European firm, and the advantage of moving to Silicon Valley gives you access to all the benefits of being around such a talented pool of technology companies and engineers. Similarly, there are a host of multinational enterprises that have relocated or expanded their R&D to various overseas locations such as India, where there is access to a qualified pool of engineering talent, and by grouping together and clustering similar to Silicon Valley, there are benefits to have all being in the same location. So these three general expansion motivations represent the typical reasons why firms expand abroad. This list is not exhaustive, but just represents the most common. However, it's worth noting that such global expansion does not come without risk. The greatest risk is what is referred to as the liability of foreignness, where the firm is entering a foreign market that is maybe unfamiliar to them. And so there is an additional cost of doing business as the firm operates in an unfamiliar culture and unfamiliar economic environment. These costs may be initial losses as the firm learns how to operate in that environment, or perhaps it involves additional costs of hiring and training experts to help the firm understand this new market better. This liability of foreignness may also involve the additional cost of coordinating across geographic distance. As you enter new markets, this cost of coordination increases, and it must be weighed against the benefits of expansion abroad. And then finally, as these new foreign markets, particularly emerging economies, develop, the benefits of moving there start to dissipate. So originally, for example, firms moved production to China, but in China, over time, the wages have risen and living standards have improved, which then reduces the benefit of relocating the value chain activity to China. In addition, there may be difficulty protecting intellectual property, thus the liability of foreignness represents a general set of costs or risks with operating in a foreign market that the firm is unfamiliar with. A second category of risks involve political risks. Some foreign markets are involved with less stable legal systems and less transparent legal systems, and as a result, any changes in these political legal systems may have huge implications for the firm. And this is something where, for example, U.S. firms often face greater risk as they move into emerging economies where the political risk is much greater and much less familiar to them. And then finally, the third category of risks are more based on economic risks, things like the protection of property rights and the stability of economic markets. It is vital that firms understand these foreign markets before entering, or if they at least protecting their own interests before entering these markets, so until they get a sense of the nature of the market they're operating in and how to protect themselves against these risks. Otherwise, the firm will destroy all the value it's trying to create by expanding geographically if it does not protect itself to its best extent possible against some of these risks. Thus, I want you to think about global expansion as a risk-return calculation for many firms. Is the benefits and opportunities of these global markets equal to or greater than the challenges and potential for loss as a result of these liability of foreignness and political and economic risks? The firms must weigh this calculation before they make such investments. We will talk later about different ways firms can hedge against these risks and also try to overcome the liability of foreignness when they enter foreign markets.